Welcome to the I Saved You, Now Do the Dishes podcast. I'm author and speaker Carrie Severson. In each episode, I'll share stories and tips from my experience with caregiving and advocacy through my husband's cancer journey. Hi, welcome back to I Saved You, Now Do the Dishes podcast. Nice to see you. Okay, so if you're watching on YouTube, I'm still at my solo retreat. I actually think I'm coming down with a head cold. I'm not surprised because I'm in this space of this story where this episode is going to be the hardest one for me so far. And so trigger warning, it's upsetting. And I think as caregivers, we suppress so much in our bodies that reliving it, talking about it has brought up some stuff. So I'm not surprised. I feel like I'm getting sick. But I wanted to use my time in this beautiful space that doesn't hold the energy or the memory of my husband's cancer journey and my caregiving experience to get through this next part. So last week I left you with pretty much like the last time my husband was able to eat food, and it was donuts. That man would, if he had to hold a sign up on the side of a street looking for work, it would be like, I would work for donuts for sure. So he finally admitted he needed a feeding tube. He was like, okay, I'm ready. And this was after learning the GI department couldn't get him in for 2 months and having a fight in front of the PA that he didn't want me to have a say. It wasn't my decision. He didn't want me having a consult with the department. Flat out telling him I thought he was going to die without it, and I didn't think I could hang out and watch it happen. So that Saturday or Sunday, he was like, okay, I'm ready. I put a note into his team. Didn't hear back. So the next morning, Monday, we had the first meeting was at 9 a.m. It was with the PA. Gavin was noticeably weak. He was really frail. He was very thin. So he does his vitals. He has lost more weight. They don't say anything to him, which was weird for me. I was expecting a lecture about, even from the text, I was expecting a lecture about, okay, now we have to discuss getting you a new helmet. We got put back into an office. I sat down closest to the desk. Gavin sat down at the end of this bench and laid down and put his head on my lap and immediately fell asleep. He was wearing this t-shirt I got him from TikTok called, it was the AC/DC Highway to Hell symbol, but instead it said ADHD, something about a squirrel. I remember that moment vividly because when he laid down on my lap, he sighed. And I really felt like he was ready to die. He fell asleep. I kind of shook him. I'm like, honey, can you stay awake? And he squeezed my thigh. I took a picture of the moment because I was like, I wanted to remember that this is it. This is the bottom here. Now we're going to fight. We're going to get past this. This has to change. This is it. The PA walks into the room, looks at Gavin, looks at me, doesn't say a thing to either of us, sits down in her chair, and I didn't wait for her to log in or anything. I was just like, he's ready for a feeding tube. And I expected empathy. I expected sympathy. And she was a nasty bitch. I actually wrote about this for HuffPost, and it went viral. It had a really strong response. A lot of people responded, commented, saying that they've had very similar experiences with healthcare community, different professionals within that community. And frankly, I'm not surprised. The healthcare community have really hard jobs. I think most of them are in burnout. And when you are working with somebody in the field who also has a really strong ego and feels the need to input their opinion on everything, they're putting their own interest above their patient. And that's who we were working with. I've said in the past that we didn't get along with her from the beginning. We didn't like her from the beginning. She didn't strike us as somebody who was going to be supportive or empathetic from the beginning. And I should have asked for somebody different. So caregivers, medical advocates, the biggest takeaway I can give to you today: if you have a personality difference, if there's something striking you wrong about the person you're working with, about the PA, about the nurse, about whoever, go to the advocate patient office, file a request to have a change on your actual team. You're dealing with so much as it is. You do not have to deal with egos and hard medical professionals. So I say to this woman, okay, he's ready. And she's like, I told you needed to do this last week. And from what I hear, you turned it down. And she's like, you make my job really hard. And my husband, who's almost passed out, doesn't have the strength to sit up. He can barely speak. And all he says is, sorry. I get it. Like, my husband fought during this experience. He was a 50-year-old man who had the life taken out of him. And he fought me, he fought the system, he fought the journey. But to have this woman tell him that he made her job hard, holy fuck. I was pissed. I remember putting my purse I think I put it behind Gavin's legs, and I inched my way closer to her, and she wouldn't let up. She was like, now I've got to start over from square one, and you better pray to your lucky stars that I'm able to work my magic and figure this out. And Gavin pushed himself up off my legs, and he was so high that he couldn't open both his eyes. Like, he only had one eye open and just a little bit. And he's like, I'm sorry. I'll do whatever you say. I don't want to die. And she just wouldn't let up. She's like, well, your personality, blah, 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 and your attitude. She said something about his attitude. And so at that point, I was like, well, this is it. I'm about to get arrested. I'm going to jail because I am about to beat the living shit out of this woman sitting in front of me. I remember clenching my fists. And I think my husband saw that, because he grabbed my hand and he squeezed it. And he was like, hey. And I was staring this woman down. And I totally ignored him. And I leaned in really close to her. And I was like, you know what? Your attitude has made this so much harder. You took an oath to do no harm. And what you're doing in this room right now is harmful. Your job is to work with him with where he's at. So do your fucking job. And she just stared at me. She didn't blink. I didn't blink. I stared at her, waiting. So Gavin squeezes my hand again. And he goes, hey. So this time I looked at him again, high, half an eye open. And he's like, it'll be okay. And I just freaked out. No, it won't be okay. You're going to die without a feeding tube. And she's in our way. So I looked back at her, waiting for her to say something. We were in a staring contest. So finally, she's like, well, and she never said anything about the fact that the GI department couldn't even see him for 2 months. All she saw on his chart is that we said no to the consult. I didn't think to say anything about the GI in the 2 months until months later, because this conversation has played over in my head time and time and time again. People like this should not have medical license. They should not be client facing. As caregivers, we shouldn't have to deal with people like this. As patients, he shouldn't have had been treated like this. So she tells us that she's going to call 2 different departments and figure out how to get Gavin a feeding tube. And she says it again, you better pray to your lucky stars. I can work my magic. So I get my husband up, don't say a thing to her. We leave the room and go back out to the lobby. I'm fuming. I'm wanting to kick holes down this hallway, but I remained calm. I'm pretty sure I left a little bit of my soul in that room. I've never been more pissed in my life. I've never wanted to physically hurt anybody before that day, before that moment. I'm shocked I didn't. That was God. That was divine intervention. Absolutely. I remember thinking, nobody on earth gets to speak to this man like that but me. I've earned this right as his wife, as his caregiver. I get to talk nasty to him when he's being inappropriate or refusing to get a feeding tube, but nobody else does. I don't think I'm alone in that, in terms of being a family caregiver and experiencing challenges with the person that you're caring for. The more people I speak to, particularly spouses, the more relatable we all are to one another in our experience, which is why this thing is called I Saved You, Now Do the Dishes. So we get into the lobby. I help Gavin sit down in a chair. And at this point, he immediately falls asleep. I am so pissed. I'm so fuming. I can't put myself right into a yoga or a breathing session. So I just sit there trying to be small, trying to be quiet, trying not to crawl out of my skin. I'm grateful that they come and get him for radiation. That was the only thing we had to do that day. Actually, he had to do another infusion because he wasn't able to drink or eat anything. So they ordered an infusion for him. So the tech comes out to get him, has to help him up out of the chair. And I watch the tech walk with Gavin down this hallway. He's got his hand on his back and his other hand is out in front just in case Gavin falls. He didn't want to use a wheelchair. So I don't do anything. I don't move. I barely feel like I'm breathing. I keep my phone on vibrate and as high as it can go, waiting for this PA to tell me what's happening. I'm assuming somebody's going to call and we're just going to walk into some other department and he's going to get stuck with a tube and pretty soon he'll, get fed. It's 9:30, 9:45 in the morning. This is going to resolve itself pretty soon. That's what's happening in my head. We're almost there. So not long after, Gavin gets wheeled back out to the lobby and his head is practically on his stomach because he was sedated. He had had a panic attack in the proton radiation machine. Not surprising. He is so scared because the ropes of mucus block his windpipe and he couldn't do it. He couldn't do radiation unless he was knocked out. So I take him in the wheelchair. I get him into the infusion appointment. Still nobody called. We have some time in between appointments. We're just sitting in the lobby, him passed out, me freaking out. He gets the infusion, nobody calls. I don't know what to do. I emailed, I put a phone call into his team. Nobody responded. So at this point, I get somebody to help me load Gavin into the car, and we head home. In my mind, I wasn't thinking maybe he could die today. I didn't let myself get to that point, but in hindsight, he could have died that day. We walked into the house. I got him onto the couch. It was time for his next dose. I made myself something to eat for the first time. It was like 2 p.m. and my phone rings. And it's the radiologist nurse who was actually really nice to us. I could tell she was in burnout. She was very cold, but she was professional. She gave Gavin as much support as the radiologist himself, but she wasn't, mean to us. And she's like, "Hey, I just talked to your doctor so-and-so. He's actually put in a request to the emergency room to accept you as a patient. They know you're coming. They're prepared a room for you. You need to come back to the ER." I'm like, I just got here. I wish you guys would have called like literally 45 minutes ago. I've been waiting. I'm like, I wish you would have given me an update. I would have stayed at the hospital. And she's like, "I'm so sorry. We had a meeting. We talked to everyone, including the PA. And I let the nurse know what happened." And she's like, "I understand. Emotions run high." And I'm like, nope, you're not blaming this on me. What she said was absolutely unprofessional. And I'm like, I'm playing it over and over and over in my mind so that I can accurately report it when I get a chance to. And she's like, "I 100% understand." So I go in and tell Gavin, we have to go back to the hospital. And Gavin's like, "Okay, first I want to eat something. I want to take a shower." And I'm like, "We have to go to the hospital because you can't eat anything." And he's like, I don't, we just got back. I don't want to go. Can't we go tomorrow? And I'm like, "No, you might, die. We have to go now." So by 4:00, we're back at the hospital. He is in the ER, and they immediately plug him into, get blood work done. They give him a suction because he can't talk. He's got so much mucus, he's inaudible. The suction works for maybe 3 seconds, and then his mouth would fill up with mucus again. So I become his voice. And every time they would ask Gavin something, he would point to me and I would answer for him. They gave him a drug that was 10 times more powerful than morphine, and he was a chatterbox. His pain level dropped. He couldn't, no one could understand him but me. But it was nice to see him supported in a place that I knew was going to take care of him. And I'll have a little bit of relief. So the attending physician comes in and he's like, "Okay, we're going to run all the scans that we have to make sure there's no there's nothing out of the ordinary. We'll do a full workup of labs, and then we're going to treat this as if he's going to get a feeding tube tomorrow. But chances are he won't get it until Wednesday." And, I'm like, how long can people go without food? And that's when I learned that the saline solution has some minerals and vitamins in it. So, they were like, they weren't worried that he wasn't going to get the feeding tube that day or the next day. But the attending physician is like, well, let's just focus on what we can focus on. He's out, he's here, he's in the best place, and he's out of a little bit of pain, which is good. So sometime later he comes back. Gavin got all the tests and all the scans, and I learned that there was nothing wrong. There was no tears. The CT showed what it had all before. There was cancer in his body, but there wasn't additional cancer. And then they tell me that I got him here in the nick of time. The attending physician said that. Well, you got here in the nick of time. And when he said it, the room sort of buzzed, and I felt like I was on an airplane. There was so much pressure in my head, and I'm highly intuitive, and my spidey sense was crawling up my back. And I'm like, why did you say that? Why did you say I got him here in the nick of time? And the attending physician sat down, and I was sitting on a chair. He sat down next to me, and he kind of leans in, and he's like, Gavin's white blood cell count is dangerously low. And if you hadn't brought him back, his body would have started shutting down. And when he said it, I got chills everywhere. I burst into tears. The attending was rubbing my back, and he's like, it's okay. He's in the right place. This is great. You did a great job. You're doing a good job. His white blood cell count was 0.02. His immune system marker was even lower than that. And I had so much anger for that PA specifically. So Gavin gets admitted. He gets brought upstairs. It's 8:00 at night at this point. He's out. He's so high. He still has all his clothes on. He refuses to take his shoes off. And I meet the nighttime staff, and I exhale for the first time in a long time. He's in the hospital. Someone else is going to take care of him. So I waited until I met everybody. I left my phone number on the whiteboard, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go home. I'm going to shower. I'm going to get some sleep, and I'm going to come back here first thing in the morning. I made sure I knew the charge nurse. I made sure I knew when rounds happened. I called his dad. I called my family. I updated everyone on Caring Bridge. And I'm like, he got admitted. We are getting a feeding tube. I don't know if it's happening tomorrow or the next day, but he's getting one soon. That was February 26th, 2024, the start of his 6th week of treatment. And he stayed in the ER for the next 8 nights. He was admitted to the long-term cancer wing because his body was so broken and he was so sick. If you are a caregiver going through an incredibly challenging time, I'm thinking of you. You're not alone. We have to be incredibly strong. And yet, it's hard to stay strong all the time. So when I felt like he could manage without me in the hospital, surrounded by all these people. I left. I went home. I cried the whole way there. Walking through the hospital at night is very eerie. But I cried the whole way home. I took off my clothes on the way to my shower, got in my shower, turned it on, freezing cold, screamed, laughed, cried, got out, crawled right into bed with my phone next to me, and I fell asleep. I woke up the next morning at 5 a.m. to the sound of my phone chirping. It's Gavin asking me if I could bring his pillows and his comforter and some clothes. I ran around the house. I grabbed everything, including clothes for myself, brushed my teeth, ran out the door, and I was back at the hospital at like 6. Rounds, I think, were at 7 or 8. It's wild what we do for the people we love. I met a very different version of myself that week. I'm sure you will too if you ever have to experience that. I'm going to leave it here. I'll tell you what happens next time. I'm sending you a lot of love. Remember, if you're a caregiver, it's okay to ask somebody to do the dishes. Until next time.